All right, I am excited. I just left the thrift store where I found a Bob Carver CD player for $20. Now, you might think paying $20 at a thrift store for a CD player is crazy, but it gets even crazier because I am 99% sure that this CD player doesn't work properly. And two, this thrift store does not take returns or even give store credit for broken electronics. So if I can't fix this thing, I am out 20 bucks completely. Let me show you what I found. Okay, I just got home. So this is the Carver CD player. It's a TL3100. And as you can see there with the price tag, I paid 20 bucks. And like I said earlier, I know this doesn't work properly. Let me take it inside and show you what's acting up with it. Okay, here is the main issue that I noticed. It powers on, and when you try to open and close the drawer tray, I doubt you can hear that, but you hear there's a whirring noise that's going. And it makes me think that it's most likely just a belt on this unit. And wouldn't that be awesome? So I ordered a belt off eBay. It cost me $12 shipped. And here's hoping that this will actually work. First, I got to figure out how to get this drawer unstuck and out. Some Sony units have the ability to do this on the bottom, but I'm not sure how to be able to do that because it just won't open at all. So let's start there. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Changing the belt on a CD player is not that complicated, and I would love to agree with you, but I am more of a tinkerer and not a technical person, and somehow when I've tried this in the past, I've always managed to goof it up and it doesn't go back in properly. Something about putting everything back together, I just mess it up and end up having to donate the unit for parts because it doesn't work properly. But I really want to get this unit up and running because it was designed by Bob Carver. And I haven't found a lot of information on this specific model, but it appears that it came out in the late 80s and it retailed at that time for around $430, which adjusted for inflation is around $1,200 today, which is basically what I just paid for this shit-erd CD transport that I bought last year. Now, because it was designed by Bob Carver, there's this special little feature called a digital time lens that supposedly adjusts the sound to make CDs at that time sound better. So I'm really interested in trying to determine if that button will impact the sound when engaged versus listening to it as a regular CD player. And you know what? I've got it. I may as well compare a high-end 80s CD model to my modern-day shit CD transport with my Denafrips Aries 2 external DAC. But I can't do any of this until I get this up and running. And luckily, I was able to figure out how to get that drawer open just by engaging a gear on the bottom of the tray with my thumb. I was able to get that tray out, and let's jump back in and see how this repair is going to end up. Now there's these two tabs right here that will disengage the front of the tray. You can see how loose this belt is right here. But as I'm looking, even if I remove this whole tray, you know, some units, all of this comes off and you can access the belt. But this seems to be underneath this gray section here. So I'm wondering if I need to take off, basically at this point, the instructions for the manual for the other player isn't really helping me. So I'm wondering if I need to remove these 4 screws and maybe this whole section here can come up and around and I can access the belt from the bottom. So the one thing I've noticed that just makes me nervous is that I can't access this belt without removing this gear. And, you know, this is the one that controls the opening and closing of the tray. You know, basically I've got to take this out and put it back in properly, exactly as it goes, or else I think I'll mess up the whole mechanism. I was really hoping not to have to do something like this. So I made a little Sharpie mark here. Hopefully that will help me kind of get an aerial view in case I have to come back and watch this. So I need to make sure that this gear, once I take it off, comes back to here when everything is set so that I can access the belt there. Oh, I don't know. Wish me luck. All right, well, I got the gear off, and man, I really hope I can put that back properly. I can now access the belt here. so I can get rid of this one and hopefully install the new one. All right, let's see how it goes. Okay, here is the new belt. And I got the gear back. Here's my little mark. Hopefully that's close enough. I had to kind of pop this guy out to get the gear out. All right. Let me put it back together, see what happens. Okay, moment of truth. I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of little rubber grommets and things that you need to kind of level this tray out. And I'm actually pretty nervous that I didn't get those in correctly and that this tray is, number one, I have no idea if it's even gonna eject or not. And if it does, will it even come out properly and go back in because of those grommets and adjustments? I don't know. I mean, I guess first let's just see if it even, does it even work? Here we go. Moment of truth. I'm nervous. Oh my gosh. It actually worked. Holy cow. Look at that. Okay, let me see if I can put this on and see if that actually will fit or not. And then let's put a disc in and see if it'll even read. Okay, I got tray, this little guy on. This is why I'm also nervous is, oh, well, there you go. I was nervous that that wasn't going to fit, but look, it went right back into place. So now my biggest concern is it going to actually read a disc? All right, let me grab a CD and let's find out. Okay, let's see. I got a CD loaded in the tray. Let's see what happens. Let's see if this will even read. Oh, look at that. Spinning. Well, I don't know if it would actually show timing here. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely spinning, but I don't see any timing tracks showing up here. I don't know if that's the way it should be or not. Can I skip tracks? Well, skip that track. By all accounts, it seems to be playing. Obviously, I don't have this hooked up, so I can't tell. You know, usually I just look for the minute and seconds to pop up and start going, you know, changing, and that's how I know it's working. But I don't know. It's not doing it on this one. I don't know what's on this display button here. Ah, well, that's what I was looking for. Cool. Well, by all means, that looks like it's actually reading and playing the disc. Oh, wow, I'm super excited. Okay, now I just got to put it all back together and put it in my system. And let's talk about how this Carver CD player actually sounds. I then put the Carver CD player back into my system, and I was actually surprised that everything worked properly and all the CDs played great. Now, this is a vintage unit, so marked up CDs tend to be a little bit more sensitive than more modern day units, but I've got a pretty marked up copy of Nirvana's Nevermind, and it actually played through all the way. But some CDs that I have had for years, if there's a slight mark on it, sometimes it caught that, but then kept playing right through. Now, more importantly, how does this unit sound? Well, the internal DAC on this unit is a Sanyo LC7881, which is just 16 bits. Now, again, this has a button on it called a digital time lens, which is what I mentioned earlier. And you can listen to the CD player with it engaged or without it engaged. Now, if you're curious what this is, I actually found the operating manual for the 3200, which is the version that was released after this model, that explains how the digital time lens work. And so if you don't mind, I'm just going to spend 20 minutes reading all this for you. Let me see. The problem. Just kidding. If you're interested, download this manual. You can read about Bob's opinion on CDs back in 1980 something, probably 89, I think is when the 3200 was released. And he explains the problem with them. And this was his solution, a digital time lens. Now, real quick, I will read this one part, that he says that the circuitry adjusts the ratio of left minus right back into proportion with the left plus right and restores the octave to octave balance originally engineered by the musician and recording engineer. And basically what I think that means is it helps provide a better center image.
Did it really impact the sound? This isn't like a loudness button that I've used on vintage receivers, you know, where you push the button and all the bass really comes into a small listening space. It's not that noticeable. I think your brain plays trick with you when you have these buttons, and you almost sit there and try to determine if you've heard something different when the button is engaged. I listened to Tears for Fears and Joni Mitchell CDs, both of which can get a little harsh. With Tears for Fears, it's sometimes in the guitar parts, especially in a song like Everybody Rules the World, or Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And with Joni Mitchell, her vocals can just sort of get a little piercing at times. And I don't know if it's just my brain playing tricks on me, but when I engaged the digital time lens, it felt like the CDs were a little bit easier to listen to. Like maybe it brought some of that harshness down. I don't know what that would have to do with left minus right and right plus left in the terms of how this might image better. But that's basically what I heard. Might have been a little bit of a bump in the bottom end, but I don't know. I wonder if my brain is playing tricks on me just because I read all this information and think, oh, well, this button was designed by Bob Carver. It's got to make some really big impact. That being said, I did, after listening for several days, end up keeping the button engaged and finding that I liked it more. Whether or not that was, again, just my own brain tricking me into that, I don't know, but I did keep it engaged. Now, there's one thing about the CD player that I would normally not pick up a used CD player that didn't have a digital output that would let me connect it to an external DAC, which is how I use most of my vintage CD players. I just use them as transport and connect them to modern DACs. Now, there's a lot of people out there that love vintage CD players and the way they sound, and they get really annoyed that I do that or suggest that people do it, but it's what I've done in the past. So, like I said, normally I wouldn't have even picked this one up, but just because it was the Bob Carver name and this digital time lens feature, I just had to pick it up. How does it sound compared to the Shit Erd with the Thrift Series 2? Listening to the same music with that setup, that's where you really get all the bass back into the sound. There's better sound staging overall, and you just hear a lot better detail. And I've always said that the Shit Erd and the Thrift is a good pairing because it removes any of the sheen and fatigue that comes with listening to CDs. And that's what I noticed. It was a lot easier to listen to CDs for a longer period of time with the Erd and the Thrift setup than it was with a CD player from 1987 or 88, whatever year this might have been released. But overall, this was a fun vintage CD player. Now, I mentioned earlier I was trying to find a service manual for this, and I could never find it. I ended up using the one for the 3200, and it actually didn't help me at all. And then by the time I finished the video, for some reason, doing some research, I ended up stumbling on the service manual for the 3100, and I had to pay 15 bucks for it. So all in all, I paid $20 for the CD player, I paid $12 for the belt, and I paid $15 for the service manual. So I paid almost close to $50 for this at the end of the day. Like I said, they sell for over 100 bucks if I want to let it go. If I just could find that remote, then I could get a little bit even better return. As many of you know, I have a vintage booth in Murfreesboro, and so who knows? I'm going to probably hang out with this CD player for a while and then maybe eventually move it to the booth to see if somebody else would want to pair this with their Carver gear, because I know there's a lot of Carver collectors out there. But all in all, I'm just excited that I was able to get this thing working and save it from the thrift store. A lot of times these things just need one small minor detail to be fixed, and even though I've tried in the past and messed up, I was excited that I was able to get this one right. Now, speaking of other things I fixed, I actually repaired a Technics turntable last year and made a video showing what that needed to get it back up and running as well. If you'd be interested in watching that video, you can do so by clicking here.